as we take our seat, noticing from the start what kind of attitude we're bringing to this radical and unusual act we call meditating. What is the quality of the intention here? Are you even awake? Especially if it's early in the morning. Let's affirm that there's nothing particularly casual about taking your seat in this way. It is really an act of taking a stand in your life by sitting here, whether you are on a chair or on the floor, or by lying here if you're lying down. So a certain kind of energy is essential from the very moment of taking your seat and assuming a comfortable posture in which to practice. It involves a certain kind of intention and a certain kind of attention, woven together, sometimes spoken of in the Buddhist tradition as right, meaning wise, effort. The Buddha used the analogy of tuning a stringed instrument. Too loose, and there's no true sound. Too tight, and the string can snap. So we need to have it be more like Goldilocks, just right, just the right quality of attention and intention. And although posture is only an aid in this process and not ultimately fundamental, and what is really important is the inner posture and the inner attitude. Inner and outer support and reflect each other. So often, even if the mind is clouded, perturbed, taut, or even if it is lax or dull at times, intentionally regulating the quality of the sitting posture, sitting as if you were awake, sitting as if you could be open-hearted and greet this moment in its fullness, and letting the posture embody that orientation, even if it feels artificial at first, becomes a rather profound strategy for remembering what you're doing on the cushion or on the chair in the first place. Otherwise, we might as well have stayed in bed or kept going with what we were pursuing in the domain of doing. So while it's hugely important not to be rigid or somber or pious or self-righteous about it, it's also true that taking your seat like this is not kidding around. It is a radical act of love and an embodiment of a certain kind of gentle understanding that our life is unbelievably fleeting and unbelievably precious and unbelievably pregnant with virtually infinite potentiality. And of course, we ignore all this almost all the time, even though we secretly know it. But just taking your seat in this way is an act of remembering, an act of embodying this deeper understanding that goes way beyond thought, way beyond concepts, way beyond philosophy, way beyond thinking mindfulness is a good idea, and way beyond any ideas we might have of meditation and meditating. So maybe it would be useful to think of sitting here in this moment as practicing yoga. This posture you are in, whatever it is just another yoga posture. So perhaps for now, throwing out any baggage associated with your ideas of meditating, and just sitting here being alive in this moment. And sitting here as if your life depended on it, which it surely does. Opening to what's already here. For instance, the soundscape, bathing us in this very moment. We don't need to reach out and find it, because it's already right here, closer than close. So, establishing yourself in an erect and dignified sitting posture that embodies wise effort and right understanding of why you're sitting here right now, and giving yourself over to hearing what's already here to be heard in this moment, and moment by moment. Just sitting here, hearing, not listening for anything, just letting sounds and the spaces between sounds, whatever they are, near or far, pleasant, unpleasant, or neutral, all arrive at your door, which they are anyway. The doors of your ears, the doors of the mind that hears and that knows, and resting in the silence and the stillness, inside and underneath sound and the spaces between sounds. Since sounds are never not arriving at the ears, seeing to what degree there's a continuity in the hearing, in the awareness of hearing what is already here. And if that continuity is interrupted, because the mind is carried here or there, then each time, as we've been doing with the breath, allowing awareness to meet whatever it is that's carrying you away from the hearing, to know it in its arising, or in the realizing of it whenever you realize it, applying mindfulness right at the point of contact, and then gently but firmly, in the process of realizing that your mind has drifted to something else, noting what that something is, and noting that the sounds are already and always right here, as they are, whatever they are, in this moment, this timeless moment we call now. So practicing presencing. The ears are always present. Sounds are virtually always present. Silence, the space between inside and underneath sounds, is always present. And awareness itself is ever available, always right here. But as T.S. Eliot said, not known, because not looked for, but heard, half heard, in the stillness between two waves of the sea. So simply resting in this stillness that is never not here, this silence inside and underneath and in between sounds, and thoughts too for that matter. Simply being with hearing, and with the mind not hearing, and with the awareness knowing hearing and not hearing, moment by moment, by moment, by moment, by moment, in a posture that continues to embody wakefulness and presence as best you can. Noticing how the mind may be evaluating or judging the sounds that arise, turning them into noise if they're unpleasant or undesirable. How it may be wanting different sounds, better sounds, softer sounds, louder sounds, more natural sounds, and then making up stories about what you're hearing or want to be hearing or aren't hearing. And noting and accepting this reactive, judging element as well, whenever it appears, and again, as best you can, opening to simply hearing what is here to be heard, moment by moment by moment. And if the mind wanders 1,000 times, 1,000 times gently, lovingly, compassionately, and resolutely, taking note of what's on your mind, the quality of it, the emotional valence of it, and coming back to the hearing that never ceases but can be ignored, tuned out, from which you can be diverted, distracted, carried away. The mind wanders, bringing it back. The mind wanders, bringing it back. Knowingly, lovingly, and firmly, each time for the first time. Each moment a unique moment. The wandering, this wandering, isn't an impediment to practice. It is part of the practice. It is in the nature of the mind to wander. But when we are in touch with our knowing of the wandering and the non-wandering, this knowing is the very same knowing as the knowing of the soundscape, of hearing what is here to be heard. And it is the knowing that is most important here, the non-conceptual, thought-free knowing of hearing, of sitting here, of being alive. Sitting with hearing, perhaps noticing that there's really no absolute inside and no absolute outside. Inside and outside are embedded in each other. And so there is no hearer separate from the sounds being heard. Only hearing, hearing, hearing. And since the soundscape comes to us courtesy of the air, in the remaining period of this sitting, expanding the field of awareness, if you care to include the air touching the skin, caressing the skin, the air that we drink in, that sustains us in the form of the breath, allowing the field of awareness to include not only the soundscape, but the airscape, the caress of the breath, and not only the knowing of the breath through the breath sensations in the body, but allowing the field of awareness to include the entirety of the bodyscape, if you will, sitting here breathing, hearing, feeling the air, breathing the air, hearing, feeling, sitting, knowing. The bells will soon signal the transition into whatever is next in your day. A few words about that transition, whether it is to silent walking meditation or to something else. Whatever it is, remembering that it doesn't have to be a break from practice, just as it's not a break from your life. It's the same practice as when you're sitting here being with hearing and the knowing of hearing. Awareness can continue whether you're going to the bathroom or getting dressed or undressed, or getting ready to go to work, or waking up your children, or having breakfast or cooking dinner. It's all the same practice. Being sensitive to where the mind is from moment to moment, the quality of awareness itself, the quality of your intention. So, as best you can, forming the intention to bring this same quality of embodied attention, of mindfulness, of moment-to-moment non-judgmental attending, as in the hearing of what is here to be heard, to every aspect of your life, and perhaps using sounds and the spaces between sounds, silence itself, and even the tone of your own voice as anchors for your attention and as occasions to reflect momentarily on your intention, on your motivation to cultivate mindfulness in the first place, to live your life fully, to be fully awake for it, to be present in and for this life, however it is, to be fully alive, whatever the circumstances, right here, right now. Just this. Just this.